أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث إلى كافة الورى بشيرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد أما بعد فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه اللهم صل على محمد إياك والغضب فأوله جنون وآخره ندم صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. Last night I mentioned that I will present a new topic on each of the nights that I will be here with you all, inshallah, with the aim of enabling us to become more Husseini, to become more like Hussein, and therefore qualifying for the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and ultimately meriting those rewards that we mentioned yesterday. Merits such as the forgiveness of all sins, and merits such as being with the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam in the highest echelons of paradise. So with this in mind, the topic that I have chosen tonight to talk about and to help us in this quest is Islamic anger management. For indeed, we all feel angry from time to time. Some people more than others, I'm sure. And so it is absolutely of fundamental importance that we know how to manage our anger if we are to progress spiritually and to develop as human beings. And therefore this is a topic which has been one of those topics focused on by the ulama of akhlaq, by the ulama of spiritual progression and development, because really it is one of those fundamental discussions that if we are able to grasp, understand, and then ultimately control in our actions, then really inshallah we will have taken a big step towards spiritual development and personal perfection, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'd like to begin by asking two very important questions with regards to anger. First of all, is anger always a bad thing? And secondly, what happens exactly when someone becomes angry? These are two fundamental questions which, if we answer, inshallah, will prepare a very strong basis for the rest of our discussion. So first of all, is anger always a bad thing? Well, the answer to that is no. Intrinsically and by itself, anger is neither a virtue nor a vice. It is neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It depends on the situation and how we use it. For indeed, anger is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us all with. In Arabic, the faculty of anger is referred to as quwwa ghadabiyya. The faculty of anger, that power which is within us that makes us angry, is known as the quwwa ghadabiyya. Now this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within each and every one of us. And therefore we know for sure that Allah does not create anything without wisdom. So there must be some wisdom behind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating us with this quwwah ghadabiyya, the faculty of anger. What is this wisdom? We will inshallah gradually see as this majlis goes ahead. Now, having answered that question, therefore, let's look at what happens when somebody is angry. What happens to us when we feel angry? Well, when we look at research which has been conducted by experts in the medical profession, they tell us that the body goes through a very important change. In fact, what happens is when somebody is angered, the body goes into what is known as the fight or flight mode. It takes on this new type of dimension whereby the body tells the person, now you either have to fight or you have to flee and just go away from this situation. The body undergoes a massive change. So what happens when somebody is angry? Well, blood begins to flow faster. It flows towards the muscles. We'll see how this affects the rest of the discussion. It flows towards the muscles, preparing the muscles for physical exertion. Because now the body is perceiving a threat perhaps, or some harm, or some type of danger. So it goes into this flight or fight mode. Also what happens is the heart pumps faster. The body perspires more. The skin begins to sweat. Temperature rises. Blood pressure rises. Not only physically though, but also mentally. The mind becomes sharpened. The mind becomes more focused towards that danger or threat. If you have a look at the natural world, if you see an animal, when an animal is cornered, an animal is wounded, just imagine, just picture that animal, how it reacts. It will either assess the situation and flee, this is the flight mode, or it will stand, the body will change, it will take a new type of position, and it will go into fight mode. It will put up a fight. So now, what the experts in the medical profession say is that when somebody is angered, they become twice as more powerful, or sometimes 3 times as more powerful, or even many more times more powerful than when they were calm. The comparison is amazing. Someone, if you just imagine and remember the last time you were angered, look at the power you felt. Look at the strength that you felt compared to when you were just sitting in front of the TV, for example, just calm and collected. The comparison is amazing. You become so much more powerful. Now, when we look at this topic in terms of Islamic spirituality and self-development, with extra power comes extra responsibility. This is where the whole topic comes in with regards to us becoming more Husseini. There comes extra responsibility. Now that you are so much more powerful, how are you going to use that extra power? Are you going to use it in a divine way, or are you going to use it in a satanic way? This is the discussion that we have. It's a very critical moment. When somebody becomes angry, they have a very important choice to make. Do they fly? Do they fly and go away? Do they put up a fight? Or is there perhaps a third response? A response of restraint? Is it possible that we can actually control our anger at that critical moment and make the right choice? Because the choices we make at that time are absolutely critical and fundamental to how we will develop as human beings. So with this in mind, having answered these 2 fundamental questions, that first of all, there is no intrinsic goodness or evil in anger. It depends on the situation and how we use it. And secondly, that the body undergoes through all these changes, and how we use use responsibly the extra power that we have. Let's go on to examine a verse of the Quran and a very famous story with regards to a prophet who became extremely angry, and we will see how he channeled his anger in a particular way. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. story that I would like to recall is the one involving Nabi Ibrahim. This story is mentioned in Surah Al-A'raf, and the verse in particular that I would like to go through in some detail is verse number 150. In this story, you all know it, it is when Nabi Musa, I said Nabi Ibrahim, Nabi Musa, when he goes, after he's been on that meeting with his Lord for 40 nights. So he has this encounter with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 40 nights, and in that encounter he is given Torah, the tablets of Torah. Now he then returns to his people, and he finds his people acting in a very sinful way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had informed him that when you return to your people, you will find that they have taken to worshipping the calf. That calf, that golden calf that they had made, they had started to worship that. So now, what does the Quran tell us? And what lessons, most importantly, can we gain from this? The Quran says, وَلَمَّا رَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَى قَوْمِهِ, when Nabi Musa returned to his qawm, to his people, what happened? قَالَ بِئْسَ مَا خَلَفْتُمُونِي مِنْ بَعْدِي. First of all, وَلَمَّا رَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَى قَوْمِهِ, what state was he in? غَضْبَانَ أَسِفًا. He was in a state of being angry and grieved. Ghadab means he was angry, but also asif, he was grieved at this situation. قَالَ بِئْسَ مَا خَلَفْتُمُونِي مِنْ بَعْدِي. He says to his people that how evil is your conduct, how evil has your conduct been in my absence, meaning that I went away for a short time and look what you've done. أَعْجِلْتُمْ أَمْرَ رَبِّكُمْ, do you hasten on the edict of your Lord? So the first thing he does is that he rebukes his people. He reprimands them. He's very angry with them. What else does he do? وَأَلْقَى الْأَرْوَاحِ, the tablets that he had from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Torah, he throws them on the ground. Then وَأَخَذَ بِرَأْسِ أَخِيهِ, he seizes the hair of his brother Harun, يَجُرُّهُ إِلَيْهِ, and he pulls Harun, his brother, the Prophet Harun, by his hair towards him. Now what do we make of that? What do we make of such conduct? Of not just a prophet, but an Ulul Azm prophet. One of the greatest prophets that they were. Ulul Azm prophets are those 5 prophets that brought a new Sharia, such as Nabi Nuh and Ibrahim and Hazrat Musa and Hazrat Isa and our holy Prophet Rasulullah Azam Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What do we make of that? He has just spent 40 days and nights conversing with his Lord. He has just received revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now he does this to his brother. He tells the people in that way. He throws down the tablets and he grabs his brother like that by the hair and pulls him towards him. What do we make of this? You see, what we can say here is that actually Nabi Musa's response was one of fight. He did not fly. He did not go away. He put up a fight. Why? Because he was manifesting the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of his attributes is that he has ghadab. He has wrath and anger when the creation, for example, does not obey him, he displays his ghadab, his wrath. Now, his divine messengers and other great saints, those who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, manifest his attributes up to a particular limit, to the maximum that they possibly can. Not of that limit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, but up to their own particular limit. Nabi Musa was doing just that. He was manifesting the ghadab of Allah. Why? Because these people had engaged in the biggest of all sins, which was shirk. In Surah Luqman, verse number 13, what do we read about shirk? Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Shirk is a great injustice. Nabi Musa's response was the most perfect response in that. Why? Because if he had not responded in that way, his people were at a very critical moment in their history. They were engaging in shirk. If he had not done what he did do, the people might have thought that Nabi Musa is indifferent, or maybe he even is happy with the situation. He approves of the situation. He had to react in such a way that it stirred emotion in the people. It made them think that look how angry Musa is with us. He had to change the way that they were thinking, the way they were behaving. And this is exactly what he does. He changes them using the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, manifesting it in the right way. Look how he channels this divine blessing of anger to achieve a divine purpose. So now we see and we can understand why he reacted in that way. At first it might have seemed surprising for Ulul Azam to do this to his own brother, but it really achieved the result that he wanted. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So now we've seen an example from the Quran of how to use anger in its correct way. Are there signs, are there characteristics that we can look at to tell us, is our anger the right type or the wrong type? Indeed there are. I would like to present to you all 3 telltale signs, 3 characteristics of divine anger, like the anger manifested by Nabi Musa, and 3 characteristics of non-divine, satanic anger. If we can look at these signs whenever we feel angry and we can acknowledge them, we will be able to tell, is our anger of that good type or of the bad type? And then we can deal with it accordingly. First of all, with divine anger is always controlled by the intellect. The aql is always in charge. It is not that egotistical anger where we are trying to just satisfy our egos, or a tyrannical anger, so where we do some dhulm and oppression. It is not irrational anger where the aql is not under control. The aql is under control. We have a saying from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is the same saying that I mentioned at the beginning of this Majlis. He says, Iyaka wal ghadab, be aware of anger, meaning that non-divine anger. He says, for awwaluhu junoon, its beginning is madness, wa akhiruhu nadam, and its ending is regret. Think about the last time you were angry, and really it was one of those bad types of anger. Wasn't it like junoon and madness? How about the end? How did you feel at the end? Didn't you feel regret? Amir al-Mu'mineen says this is the non-divine type of anger. The beginning is always madness. The end is always regret. Your judgment is clouded. You will not be able to make the right decisions. You will make an incorrect judgment about the situation. At the end, you will just regret. So this is the first characteristic of non-divine anger. It is not controlled by the intellect. The best example of someone controlling their anger is none other than Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alayhi. And you all know the story. It happened in the Battle of Khandaq, the Battle of the Trench. You all know the famous incident with Amr ibn Abd Wud. What happened there? How did Mawla Amir control his anger at a time when most people would have let their anger control them? Well, what happened was this supposedly great warrior Amr ibn Abdul, when he challenges the Muslims to fight, only Mawla Amir comes forward and he defeats him. Then at the end, he sits on the chest of Amr ibn Abdul, and Hazrat Amir is about to sever his head and finish him off. At that time, Amr spits in the face of Hazrat Ali. What does Hazrat Ali do at that time? What would most people do? What would you and I do perhaps? Let's think about this. At that moment, he is seen to get up and go away for a short moment of time. Then he is seen to come back and then just finish off Amr ibn Abdul. People ask him afterwards that, oh Mawla, we saw you that once you had defeated this warrior, this supposedly great warrior, you all of a sudden got up, went away, then you came back and finished him off. Why did you do this? He says that when he spat on my face, I felt very angry. I felt very angry. But I went away because I didn't want my anger to play a role in my killing him. I wanted to kill him sincerely for the sake of Allah. And therefore I went away, took a time out if you like, came back and then killed him khalisan liwajhillah, purely and sincerely for the sake of Allah. This is when the intellect controls anger, not the other way. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So that's the first characteristic. The intellect controls it. If it doesn't, then it is non-divine anger. Secondly, with non-divine anger, the purpose is not to attain something divine. However, with divine anger, all of our energy and strength is channeled towards attaining a divine purpose. So when somebody has non-divine anger, it is tyrannical, it is egotistical, it is irrational. They are not trying to attain something divine. It's to satisfy their own ego. It is to get their own back. It's to attain revenge without a logical, rational and legitimate reason. So that's the second characteristic we should look out for. Are we attaining a divine purpose or something which is non-divine? And thirdly, the telltale sign for non-divine anger is that our actions go beyond the bounds of the Sharia. With divine anger, we remain within the Sharia. We have control. We control our anger and our actions don't go beyond the bounds of the Sharia. With non-divine anger though, we go beyond the bounds of the Sharia. Our sixth holy Imam, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq salawatullah wasalam alayhi, he puts it beautiful. He says, Al-ghadab miftahu kulli shar. Ghadab and anger is the miftah. It is the key to every evil. Because once you go into that non-divine anger, you will start doing things which go beyond the bounds of the Sharia. It is not allowed to do it, but you will go beyond the bounds and you will do it. I'll give you a story to illustrate how all this comes into practice, especially for my younger brothers and sisters. They love their anecdotes and stories, inshallah, but let's see what we can gain from it, what lessons we can derive. So there was a man whose pride and joy was his car. Okay, I don't know what it is about men and their cars, right? Sometimes they say men love their cars more than their wives. Now I don't know about that, but anyway, this man was one of those types. And he was doing some work on his car. This car that he loved and he would keep spotless and always, in tune and all the rest of it. Just at that time, his 4-year-old son takes a stone and he starts scratching one of the doors of the car. Now, what does this man do? He's absolutely outraged. Without thinking, remember that saying, awwaluhu junoon wa akhiruhu nadam. Its beginning is madness, the end is regret. What he does is, without even thinking, he raises his hand and he hits that hand of that 4-year-old son of his, right? The hand that was making the scratches. However, he doesn't realize that in his hand he's still holding the wrench. He's holding the wrench that he was fixing his car with. So what happens is he breaks the poor little fingers of his son. Then he is so regretful, he takes him to the hospital. At the hospital, his heart breaks. His heart breaks when his son holds up his broken hand and he says to his father, "Oh father, when will my fingers grow back?" But then, even worse than that, when he comes home with his son, they are discharged, he brings his son home, he thinks to himself, let me just have a look at the scratches that resulted in all this. He takes a look. You know what he sees? He sees that his son had actually written, "I love you, Dad." Ghadab and anger, the non-divine type, its beginning is madness, its end is regret. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So this is how it is. With anger, non-divine anger, it always results in this way. Now, I'd like to move on and talk about some strategies, inshallah, because like I said yesterday, we will always try and put forward in the course of these lectures some practical tips, because it's all very well talking theoretically and giving verses and hadith anecdotes, but we should also come away with some practical tips, how we can put these things into practice and inshallah become more Husseini. In this regard, I would like to put forward 4 practical ways as to how we can appease and pacify and control our non-divine anger. Of course, the divine anger is in its own place. It can serve for a very good purpose, because that divine anger, remember, without that quwwa ghadabiyya, we need that. We need the divine anger, just like Nabi Musa showed, because it repels what is bad for us. Without that anger, we would not be able to repel what is bad for us. Also, anger, if it's used in its correct way, helps us to defend ourselves, our property, the things that we hold dear to, things like our religion, our principles, our family members, our beliefs. So we need that anger to defend and to protect all of these things. But when we feel that non-divine anger, using those telltale signs, those characteristics, then how can we control it? 4 tips I would like to put forward, inshallah. And in order to help us learn these 4 ways and to remember them, I've devised a simple mnemonic. Just a simple tool to help us remember these, using a simple ABCD, whereby each one of these letters stands for the first word of this 4-stage strategy, inshallah. So the A of this strategy stands for acknowledgement. We must acknowledge that it is non-divine anger. It is satanic anger. How can we tell? Well, when we are feeling angry, somebody makes us angry, something happens, we feel really hurt, and we want to do something out of anger, we look at those telltale signs. We acknowledge it is non-divine. So it is not controlled by the intellect, it's not attaining a divine purpose, and our actions are going beyond the bounds of the Sharia. So the A in the simple mnemonic is acknowledgement that it is non-divine. Now, when we are thinking about this, we should realize what Amir al-Mu'mineen told us, that the beginning will only be madness, the end will only be regret. We are not going to make the right choice at this stage. Our judgment is clouded. We will not make the right decision. So we acknowledge this. Secondly though, the B in this simple strategy stands for bearing in mind. Bearing in mind what? Bearing in mind Allah. When we feel that non-divine anger, if we bear Allah in mind, then it will help us to control it. How can we do this? First of all, a very beautiful saying from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. This saying tells us that actually we don't have to fight every single battle. Some things it's better we leave it to Allah to resolve. In this tradition, our sixth holy Imam says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told one of his prophets, so it becomes a hadith Qudsi, right? It's a hadith Qudsi, a holy hadith, a divine hadith from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we call hadith Qudsi, the speech of Allah, but not Quran, okay? So in this hadith Qudsi that the sixth holy Imam reports, Allah says to one of his prophets that, "O son of Adam, remember me in the midst of your anger, and I will remember you in the midst of my wrath." So when I am angry, I will remember you because you remembered me when you were angry. Then he goes on to say, "And I will not obliterate you, I will not destroy you when I am destroying others. You will be saved." And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that be satisfied with me as your avenger. So we become satisfied that Allah will avenge for us. For indeed in this tradition he goes on to say that, "For indeed I am a better avenger for yourself than you are for yourself." Allah is a better being for taking revenge for us than we are for taking revenge for ourselves. Meaning that sometimes, you have that saying, choose carefully which battles you fight. Don't fight every single battle. Choose your battles very, very carefully. It applies here as well. Sometimes it's better we just leave it in the hands of Allah. Yes, we are angry, but instead of immediately reacting, just say that inshallah Allah will avenge this thing for us. Sometimes it's better to do that. Remember and bear in mind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now just while it's on the B stage, the second stage, there are 3 quick little tips that we can do to bear Allah in mind. One is isti'adha. Isti'adha means seeking refuge in Allah. When we say a'udhu billah, that's known as isti'adha, seeking refuge in Allah. Now, before I go on to the other 2 little tips as to how we can bear Allah in mind, there's a wonderful story involving Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari. I don't know if you've heard of him or not. He is known as Khatimul Fuqaha wal Mujtahideen, the seal of the jurists and of the mujtahids. A great scholar. His books are still studied today in the Hawza. Maqasid, for example, is one of the books still studied today, and it was authored by him. What happened was, one day, this is to show isti'adha, this seeking refuge in Allah from the outcast shaitan. When we say a'udhu billah, look what it truly means. Look how Sheikh Murtada Ansari put this into practice. So one day, this man is having a dream, and in this dream he sees shaitan, and shaitan has in front of him all of these ropes. They're all different types of ropes, different thickness, some are thicker than others. And then this man, he asks shaitan that, "I see all these ropes in front of you, what are they for?" And then shaitan responds by saying that actually what I do is I use each one to throw over Allah's creation, and depending on the person I choose which one would be appropriate. So for somebody who has lots of faith and has a very strong beliefs and all the rest of it, I use a thicker one. For somebody who doesn't have so much faith, I use a thinner one. So then this man sees that there's a very thick rope on the floor near shaitan, but it's been cut into 3 pieces. So then the man asks him in his dream that, "What's this one then for? I see it's been cut into 3 pieces." Shaitan replies to him, and he says that this was the rope I was going to use for Sheikh Murtada Ansari last night. I was going to use it for him, to throw over him and to draw him towards me. But For some reason, the rope was cut 3 times. So now this man is thinking, what's this all about? Why was this rope cut? So he wakes up, he goes to Sheikh Ansari. By the way, this is reported in slightly different ways. The version I'm reporting is mentioned in a book by Qurbaniyan. But you might see it reported in slightly different ways. But in any case, the point is the same. So he goes to Sheikh Ansari, he tells Sheikh Ansari the whole story with shaitan and the ropes and that one big one that was cut 3 times. Sheikh Ansari, he says to him, actually last night something quite amazing happened. My wife was pregnant and I was in such a desperate situation for some money to secure the things that I needed for the childbirth, that on 3 separate occasions I went towards some amana, some money that had been entrusted to me by other people, to just, inshallah, let me see if I can use it, buy these things for the childbirth. But every time I went towards that money, I realized it wasn't mine. It was an amana from someone else. And I did isti'adha. I sought refuge in Allah. I did it 3 times. I went towards it, but then I left it. I went towards it, I left it. I went towards it, I left it. And then my wife gave birth. So you see why that rope was cut now. 3 times isti'adha, seeking refuge in Allah from the outcast shaitan, truly and sincerely, not just saying a'udhu billah, but truly in our actions demonstrating that we are seeking refuge in Allah from shaitan. So then, just to finish off the story, it has a very funny ending to it. What happens is, this man, he asks shaitan that, okay, for me, can you tell me what type of rope you use for me? What does shaitan reply? He says, actually for you I don't even need a rope. You're already in my hands. So some people, unfortunately, they are like that. But in any case, the point being, although this is a dream, it's not authoritative for us, it's not like Quran or Hadith or something, it's a dream, but the point is important. The point being, true isti'adha means really sincerely and actually seeking refuge in Allah from the outcast shaitan. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So bearing Allah in mind, we can do it by isti'adha. Secondly, by hawqala. Hawqala is saying La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Okay, this is the second thing we can do to bear Allah in mind. And thirdly is sajda. Going into sajda, we bear Allah in mind by prostrating. Now of course, not everything can be done in every situation. If you're having an argument with someone, you won't be able to go into sajda immediately, but it depends on the situation. If you can do it, if you can't, then you can't. It's a situation determines what we can do, what we can't do. But perhaps you're in front of the computer, an email comes that makes you angry, then you probably can. Or you read something, you hear something, and you can do sajda and all the rest of it, then we should. So A, acknowledge that it is non-divine anger. B, bear Allah in mind, either by using these strategies, isti'adha, hawqala, and going into sajda. C, the C stands for changing position. What this means is that when we are facing this non-divine anger, change our position. That means, from our riwayat, from our traditions, all of this is from our great imams and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. It means if you are standing, sit down. If you are sitting, stand up. Also, leave that place where you're feeling angry or that person is making you angry. Leave it. Change your position. Also, they really recommend in these courses that you sometimes read about, these anger management courses, changing position, changing your environment. Engage yourself in something else, in particular exercise. If you are regularly feeling angry, exercise, changing your position in that way will help you to appease your anger. And finally, to change your position, change something in the way you are, if that person is a close relative, meaning it's a mahram person, and you are able to touch them, in our traditions we are told that touch that person. Now there are certain things that we might not understand why it works. There's wisdom, there are secrets behind some of these things. But by simply putting your hand on that person's shoulder, perhaps touching the arm, of course, if it's within the Sharia and you are able to touch that relative, touch that person. Both of you will feel less angry with each other. So C stands for change of position, and D, finally, the fourth thing that we can do to appease our anger, the non-divine type, is to drench. Drench the fire of anger with water. What this means is that in our traditions we are told, perform wudu. And in some traditions we are told, in addition to wudu, perform ghusl. So the D stands for drenching the fire of anger with water. As a summary, therefore, anger, it is neither divine nor satanic intrinsically by itself. It's neither good nor bad. It depends on how we use it and the situation we're in. We saw that how the body changes a lot when we get angry. We saw how Nabi Musa used divine anger, the manifestation of Allah's ghadab, to achieve a very good divine result. We also saw those telltale signs of the intellect controlling the anger, of the fact that it must be used for a divine purpose and it must not go beyond the bounds of the Sharia. And then we looked at 4 strategies, the ABCD of controlling our anger: acknowledgement, of bearing Allah in mind, changing position, and drenching with water. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. Sallallahu alayka ya ibna Rasulillah. صلى الله عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Please recite with me. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. Whenever a lover of the Ahlul Bayt enters the land of Karbala, automatically he feels saddened and grieved. It is as if a cloud of sorrow overcomes him. This was the position of the Ahlul Bayt when they entered Karbala on the 2nd of Muharram. Indeed, it is reported that many years before, Imam Ali, he approached the land of Karbala. Somebody tells him, this place is called Karbala. Imam Ali says, Na'am, dhatu karbin wa bala. Yes, this is a land of affliction and tribulation. And then Imam Ali, he says, what will happen in the future? He says, this is the place, he points with his arm. He says, this is the place where they will alight. There is a place where the camels will hold, and there is a place where their blood shall be spilled. Indeed, it is reported that on the 2nd of Muharram, when the holy caravan entered Karbala, initially it was Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi who stood in front of Imam Hussein. He would not let him go further, and he says, this is near the Euphrates River. It is reported that even Imam Hussein's horse, he felt something, for the horse did not want to go further. Then Imam Hussein, he asks about the name of the place. He says, what is this place called? So Zuhair ibn Qaym, he says to him, "Oh Mawla, do not ask anything, just keep on marching until Allah gives us relief." And then he says to Imam Hussein, he says, "This place is called At-Taf." Imam Hussein asks him, "Does this place have any other name?" Zuhair answers, "Yes, it is also known as Karbala." At that time, Imam Hussein starts weeping and he prays to Allah, "Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-karbin wa min al-karbi wal-bala." Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from the affliction and the tribulation. And then Imam Hussein, he echoes the words of his father. He says, "This is a land of affliction and tribulation. Dismount. There our blood shall be spilled, and there will be the place of our graves." But I say, O Mu'mineen, how true were the words of Abu Abdullah when he says there will be the place of our graves. That's exactly what happened. For indeed that was the place where the holy lady Zainab saw her brother lying on the sands of Karbala, all alone, as Shimar approached him with a knife in his hand. That was the same place where on the 11th of Muharram, Lady Zainab saw Abu Abdullah lying, but this time his head had been severed from his body. Poor Lady Zainab, how her life changed within a few days. On the 2nd of Muharram, when Lady Zainab entered Karbala, look how she entered. Look who was with her. Imam Hussein was with her. Hazrat Abbas was with her. Her nephews Ali Akbar, Ali Asghar, Qasim were with her. Her son's owner Mohammed were with her. The companions of her brother were with her. But within a few days, everything changed. On the 11th of Muharram, when she leaves Karbala, look at the situation she was in. Who was with her then? Where are her family members? Abu Abdullah has been slain in front of her. Hazrat Abbas has had his arms cut off and he's lying near the banks of the Euphrates. Abu Abdullah's companions have all been slain. Ali Akbar has been chopped into pieces. Ali Asghar has been shot with a 3-pronged arrow. Qasim has been trampled under the hooves of the horses. Even older Mohammed were killed in front of her. But she sees the martyrs. She sees parts of their body. The only parts she sees are the heads of her family members. For indeed these heads were placed on spears. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم إنا نسألك باسمك العظيم الأعظم على الجل الأكرم. يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. Oh Allah, through the intercession of Abu Abdullah and all the shuhada and captives of Karbala, accept the following praise of ours. Oh Allah, enable us to always control our anger, inshaAllah. Oh Allah, enable us to live and die with the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Oh Allah, enable us to live according to the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, forgive us and our forefathers for our sins. Bring relief to all those who are facing difficulty and hasten the appearance of our Imam Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Respected brothers and sisters, just a quick announcement before we proceed with the second session. We do have some open majalis for English, Shabi Ashur, Roze Ashur, and also 11th and 12th. Anybody who would like to sponsor English majalis, please contact Brother Zulfiqar. This is the Shabi Ashur, Roze Ashur, 11th Muharram and 12th of Muharram. And inshallah we will proceed with the second session for Urdu majalis. For Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
Remember the pneumonia?